All right, and we're COMP2068, and it's week 8, lesson 8, part 1. And what we're talking about today, a couple things I want to talk about is your exam. I took a look at it, and I did look at your assignments. I should get them up by the weekend. I've looked at mostly everything. I just want to try and, what I do is I take a look at stuff first, and then when I look at them, I balance them out, and I go, oh, okay, this was kind of good, and he did this kind of good. And then what I do is update it online. So I kind of put those together so that it's, I look at stuff. Sometimes I go back and correct as well before I publish. Anyways, let's go back and talk about this assignment 3. So assignment 3 is what we're talking about today. And then we're going to do a tutorial on how to start building it, right? Because we need to start from somewhere. And I'm not going to leave you in a lurch because there's a lot to do here. All right, so let's take a look at the assignment. All right, like we just said, it's due class 10. We're sitting at week 8. It's due the week of, the Friday of week 10, right, which is 2 Fridays from now, right? So not tomorrow, but 2 Fridays. We're going to use the MailPilot project template, right, which I provided online. So if you go online, I'm just going to kind of open up another window here. Let's go to GitHub for a second. And there's a couple of things that I've put together. If you look at my repositories here, right, if you go to if you search for COMP2068, right, we have the slot machine and press, all that stuff. But the one I want you to look at is MailPilot. If I search for MailPilot, I've got a couple of versions. COMP2067 is the other class I'm doing, and that's kind of the interactive demo that I'm doing with them. I'm going to do one for you guys, right? But MailPilot version 11 is your code base. I also have a MailPilot final that I'm going to show you. I don't want you to use this one. I don't want any code from here. Right? I want you to use this one, MailPilot version 11. All right? So we're going to talk about this and what this whole thing is. Right? So let's kind of come up with. I'm going to kind of launch in this window. Or maybe not in this window. Maybe I'll do it in this window. Yeah, maybe I'll do there. I'll launch VMware. Let's go try that here. I don't know if you guys have heard, just as an aside, have you guys heard that they've made Unreal Engine free, right?
Yeah.
So
They also made Source Engine free.
they did? Source Engine too?
And Unity 5 was released.
So I downloaded Unity 5. I don't know if you guys had a chance to do that. It's really cool what you can do with it. And I also downloaded Unreal, right? So I wanted to install both engines. You know what? I kind of like both of them. I've been using Unity more lately than anything else. So because Unity is a little bit, it uses C# technology. So if you're a C# guy, then you're good to go, right? Unreal uses C++. So if you're not a C++ person and it's a little bit clunky, although the new interface looks really sleek, I'll be honest with you. It's pretty cool. It comes with some really cool things. Now, the great thing about if you're going to do 3D development at any point, or even 2D stuff that you can do with either engine, Unity or Unreal, the great thing about those two engines is that you can export to 2D, and they're multi-platform. So Unity handles 12 different platforms that it can kind of export to. Was that?
21 with Unity.
Is it 21 with Unity 5? And the same thing goes with Unreal. Unreal handles a lot of them too. So you can export things to iOS, Android. You can do things on Xbox, Sony, everything else you want. Desktop for Mac and Windows and Linux. So different kind of desktops and web. So we have all those different things you can do. So from a game engine perspective, I don't think you can go wrong with those kind of options. So we won't handle it here because this isn't a game and simulation course. But I'm sure the people in game and simulation might have a surprise maybe in another couple of semesters when we kind of bring on additional tool sets. So that's the kind of a preview on that. Anyways, back to this. Let's take a look at, and that came out of the GDC this year, right? Because GDC came up with all kinds of new stuff. All right, I'm going to go into our MailPilot demo that we're going to use. We're going to use MailPilot version 11, and we'll see what this MailPilot thing is I speak of, right? Because you guys don't know what I'm talking about yet. I'm going to run this thing locally. By the way, we're going to have to make some modifications to your setup today. Okay, we're going to talk about setting up your machines a little differently today. All right. So if you're running a laptop, and hopefully you are, then you should be fine. This is MailPilot, right? So we got a little plane, right? Back and forth. I can play the game. I got a little text that says MailPilot, right? I play the game. I got some stuff here, right? 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 Crash. Oh yeah. It's not me. It's not me, right? And then you say game over and final score. So even though this seems like it's really easy, yay, and all this kind of stuff, the thing with this thing, this little program, by the way, this is kind of something I've been working on since 2011, right? Not me personally, but I've been working with these tools and assets for a while. If you look at some of the simplicity of what we got here, we've got a background scrolling bitmap, right? And it's really not scrolling. What it really is moving down the screen and then repeating. So that's what's happening. So it looks like it's scrolling forever, but really not. We've got a button that allows us to try again or start the game over. So here's, I'm just going to restart the game. I got a bit of an engine sound in the background. Someone's doing, that's what they're doing, right? I've got these buttons, play game. If I hover over my buttons, I get this kind of hover effect going on, right? If I center my mouse on my plane, if you notice, my mouse will be centered along my plane, right? And so wherever my mouse moves, approximately, now you have to forgive me, I have lag because I'm using a simulator. So I'm running here in a virtual machine. Your machine will run faster than mine, right? If I press play game, I've got my clouds, 3 clouds, a scoring system, and some islands that I can score with, right? So every time if I hit an island, I score. If I get hit by a cloud, I die, right? And then finally I die. So this is what you start off with. So a very simple thing, but here's what you get with it. If you look at the files for that you start off with, I give you a couple things. I give you an asset manager class, right, which we're going to talk about in a bit. By the way, it says your project uses a version of TypeScript older than the version currently installed. We're going to talk about that because I've updated my version to 1.4, and we're going to need to do that. Okay, so we'll go back to that in a second. I'm going to say no for this one. I have a collision manager we're going to talk about a little bit today as well. So what's that collision manager do? And I also have a bunch of other assets. If you notice my directory structure, I've got a bunch of objects. We talked about making our unique modules. I've got a bunch of objects, a button class, a cloud class, an island class, all these things that are built in that you get to use, all right? So, and of course we have some game states because we're implementing a finite state machine, right? Finite state machine, we're going to shift between states. A state would be something like this. You start off and you have an instruction state. And then from there you press the button and it takes you to the game state. And after the game state, you go into the game over state, right? So actually you shift screens, if you will. But they're not shifting screens. All you're doing is replacing your background. You shift modes almost. You're almost like an app within an app. So there's three small little apps that you're running all at the same time. And all you're doing is you're just launching this one and shutting this one down, right? So that's what we're doing with the finite state machine. So that's part of it as well. If you notice, so it's already a modular app that you kind of start with. Now you're going to need to modify this thing to make it your own, right? Here's the requirements for the assignment. All right, if I go back to this thing, I'm just going to close this off. Requirements. You cannot use my stuff. And I mean, like, you cannot use my assets whatsoever. I don't want clouds. I don't want my buttons. I don't want to see I definitely don't want to hear my sounds. I don't want it to be a MailPilot game or a plane game of any kind. All right, well, if it's a plane game of your own, that's fine, right? And it's a side scroller, not a top scroller. All right, I don't want your clouds being replaced, right, with some other asset, whatever it's going to be, rocks, right, that come down from the top of your screen, unless it makes sense with your theme. I want you to build your own theme for the game. It's going to be your own game, okay? This is not a group project. This is a single project that you're going to build on your own. I don't want you to use GameMaker, Construct 2, or any other kind of game program, not Unity or Unreal or anything else to create, to create any kind of 2D package for web. It's got to be, you're going to script it with Create.js. That's what I'm going to ask you to do, all right? Now you can use other game frameworks if you don't like Create.js, like Phaser, if you really want to. But the thing that means you're going to have to start from scratch, and you can't use my code, right? I've done about 10 to 15 hours of programming here to get you to this point. So I've given you a jump of 10 to 15 hours. If you want to go back and start over, that means you're going to have to put 15 hours of your own time in, approximately, maybe more, to get yourself up to where I'm going to get you. All right, so that's part of it. So you need to use your own assets. You're going to make sure that it's a side scroller, so it goes from right to left or left to right, right? You need to have a start screen. That includes instructions for the user, right? A game screen where you play the game. Hey, sleepyhead. And you have to use a game over screen, right? That tells you the user you can start over again, right? And a scoring system. Some kind of scoring system where the guy can score. Now, there's a lot of leeway here. I made a playing game. You can make a side-scrolling platformer. You can do whatever you like on your end. Here's some warnings. Traditionally, this project, so assignment 3, has been used as a kickoff point for the final project, which I will allow you to do. Here, I've asked you to make 1 level. Your final project will require 3 levels and additional complexity, right? So some people, what they do, and by the way, the final project will be either you can do it on your own or with a partner, right? Some people, what they do is they use this project and they combine it with somebody else with their technologies, and you kind of contain 1 new final project that you're going to kind of kick off for the end. So again, things I don't want to see. First of all, this thing has to be live again, okay? I don't want to just please just don't give me the files. That's not cool. You lose marks for that. It's got to be a side scroller, one way or the other, left to right, right to left, right? And you got to have your own assets. I don't want 1 asset of mine being used again. If you see other assets that I've seen that are my assets, I will not accept them. I will basically say, I'm not going to accept your project, right? So please don't do that, right? That's like, I didn't do any work, Tom. I just handed you back what I gave to you, right? Now, I've given you some good examples of what to do, but it doesn't mean that that's my way is the only way. We'll talk about that. And here's some specific instructions for each of the screens. So a start screen, a gameplay screen, a game end screen, player control of an avatar or vehicle or character. So lots of leeway here in terms of definition, right? You can make whatever kind of vehicle or character you want, right? The mouse will be the main input device and control all basic movements. Some people in the past have made it so the mouse can go anywhere they want on the screen. That's just silly, right? Yes, you can make that happen, but you should probably constrain your mouse a little bit, and I will recommend that to you if I take a look at your code, that your mouse should be constrained in some way. Maybe slow the movement down for the mouse so the guy can't just move all over the place to make it more challenging for him. Some people have chosen to use keyboard and mouse, or just keyboard. I'm fine with that. Even though it says mouse is your only way in, I'm good to use. If you decide to make a keyboard-based game, I'm good to go. You have to figure that out on your own. I'm not going to cover it on this particular assignment, but if you'd like to try and do that, I'm good to go with that. Computer control of the enemies, right? Now the enemies in my game, in Mail Pilot, are the clouds. Clouds come at you, right? And you hit them and they go, right? You're going to add some other intelligent sounds, I'm hoping, right? And, the artificial intelligence are very simple, right? It's a random distribution of clouds all over the place. I want you to make enemies that are abundant enough to challenge the player, but not impossible to beat. If the game is too impossible to play, you're going to lose marks. Okay, so please don't make it impossible to play the game. It's got to be fun for you to play, right? Huh? Don't do that. That's crazy, right? Although people have made a Flappy Bird clone in the past for this course, and I'm okay with it, but it's got to be your own code. I don't want to see code from the net, and I can detect that in 2 seconds. I can tell if it's not your code in 2 seconds, too. Random placement of items to collect and or obstacles to pass through or over. Example, in Mail Pilot, we have the plane pass over islands, and you get some points, right? So it could be for you that you're going to get some kind of something that makes sense. I don't want to see on your game, right? You're making a space game, and you're going along, and you see like a gas tank, and you kind of collide with the gas tank, and then now you're good. Now you collected some points. Or you're making a game, and you're running forward. It's got to make the theme has to be consistent, right? You're kind of running over stuff. You see some kind of, I don't know, gem in the middle of space that you're collecting, right? You got to kind of run it by me. So I want to take a look at what your concept is by next week. We're going to talk about your game concept next week. And then by the end, by week 10, I want to take a look at your pre-final version. So you should have almost everything done by the Thursday, the week 10, which is 2 weeks from now, right? I have a lot of time to do this. And then by the Friday, you're going to hand it in, right? So again, before that time, probably next week, what I'm going to do is give you your final project, right? And again, think about, I want you to plan this out. So when you make this side-scrolling game, right, think about how it's going to make sense with your final project. So if you decide that you're going to extend this thing and this side-scroller thing is going to be your thing, you don't have to make it that. If you want to make a whole new project for your final project, something totally different, that's up to you. And I'll show you that next week when we talk about it. But plan ahead. Plan to make it so that you can add a couple more levels. Maybe easy, medium, hard, or maybe level 2, level 3 with a boss monster, something like that. You can make whatever you want at the end of the day. I only caution you not to make a puzzle game. Puzzle games are bad. You'll kill yourself with that kind of thing. You'll write yourself into a black hole and I'll never see you again, right? So don't do that. Puzzle games are hard. Like making a chess game, that would be really, really stupid and hard, right? And the reason why is because the chess algorithm, if you had to build that yourself, could take weeks, right? And that's just silly.
Can we not just copy that algorithm?
No.
On the internet?
No. And the other thing that I would tell you is that copying is not going to be allowed. And the other thing is that, from a bad perspective, is try not to do things in 3D, like using 3JS or anything like that. That's also insane. If you try and do 3JS or 3D stuff for this course in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're insane. That's crazy. It's just too long. It's going to slow down your development, and you won't be able to finish. So please don't try and do these things. We don't have time. Okay, part H. The player must have a life counter or health status. Okay, so it has to have some way of knowing the player's alive. The avatar's got to have that. And add some sound effects for collisions. We'll talk about how to do collisions, and with enemies, and collecting points when you collect points. Right? Again, you have your internal documentation, which is your commenting, which I expect you guys to do. Your external document, which is a little bit beefier, of course, because there's more stuff to do. Like, for example, you need to do some interface sketching where with the wireframing. I want to see what your interface looks like when you hand it in. And some screen descriptions with screenshots. There are two different things here. And if you notice, the marks are separated. Marks are separated out that way. Okay, of course, share it on GitHub for 4 marks. So that's really the thing in a nutshell. You also have some optional game features. Here's some suggestions I can make for you. These are all optional. Empower the computer-controlled enemies to fire bullets. Right? So if you make bullets fire at your avatar, and it makes sense. You don't want to you don't want a little girl firing bullets at you unless it's like a defeat the little girl game. I don't know. It's got to make sense for you, right? You don't want like asteroids firing bullets at you unless the asteroids are actually planetoid asteroids with whatever, right? Make a story for your bloody game anyway, right? Include a final boss monster to avoid, right? So some bigger object or more difficult to kill, multiple, maybe the boss monster is going to have multiple health points. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Add power-ups for the player's avatar. Example, extra speed, a shield, whatever. Give the player's avatar the ability to kill or destroy the computer-controlled enemies. In other words, give yourself the ability to fire bullets, right? Add a cool soundtrack to the game. That one is the one that people choose the most because for an extra point, you're going to get a point for that. That's easy to do, right? We're going to talk about that. Animate the player's avatar as he controls it. Example, adds a walk sequence. Tilt it left and right if he moves the avatar somehow, like a ship, whatever. Make it so it's animated a little bit so it's not just flat, right? And allow the game to scroll in any direction in response to the player's controls. So you're scrolling, but now you can scroll in diagonal, or you can scroll up, or you can scroll, so it scrolls all over the place. So it's a free-form world, right? These are more points, and this is a lot more work. But if you want to challenge yourself, here's the ability to do so. And there's other things you can add in as well. Again, I would recommend when you add additional options in, you let me know through your external documentation. Say, hey, here are my extra options, Tom. Please give me points for this stuff, right? Any questions around this? Okay, you're going to, yes? You can use spreadsheets, absolutely. We're going to talk about that over the next week or so, right? Let's talk about a couple things too before I shut this one down, this movie. So I've got a couple of things up on GitHub, right? One of the things I had up here was this MailPilot version 11, but I also have something else called MailPilot Final, right? And this is kind of MailPilot version 14 that I put up. Why did I put it up? Because I want you to see where you can take it, how far you can go, right? Within reason. Okay, and I did this. I kind of did the same thing when you guys had this project, and again, this was a couple semesters ago. I was kind of doing it as well, and I gave myself the same time limitation as you, starting off at version 11 and working up. Okay, so it took me a couple weeks to come up with this. within my time frame because I was busy as well with other projects, just like you would be. So let's take a look at that version 11. I'm just going to close this one down, or version 14, I mean, which is the final. So if I go into version 14, or version 16, sorry, version 16, I didn't know if it was version 16 or version 14, I can't remember. But it's almost very similar to what we had before, isn't it? You might think it is. Let's take a look and let's run it and see what I got here. So this isn't it. It's this, right? So now I've created this is MailPilot, but my version 16, coming from version 11, right? Now it's going to be a top scroller because it's my game, so I can make a top scroller, right? But and I could have made it as a side scroller. I know you're shaking your head, but I took the actual plane here is actually a 3D representation of a program that or a mesh that I got from the internet. I did it in Blender, right? So I actually positioned it in Blender to make it look like this because I had made this game MailPilot in 3D at one point, right? So actually a 3D version of MailPilot. And if you notice here, I've got my kind of custom text that I used. It's a custom bitmap that I put together for MailPilot. And this thing that spins around like this, what this is it's just a transparent bitmap that just rotates. So it makes it look like, hey, this is a start screen, right? That's how I did it. And then, of course, if you notice, the ocean background is here in the background. So there's different layers that I've got here to create this start screen. So if I start the screen, soundtrack, right? Instruction screen, basic instruction screen, back, play, right? Little bit of explosions, right? Different kinds of sounds, right? And if you notice, it's a little bit better. The score and the text is bitmap text. We'll talk about how to do that. I've got a animating button, coin, if you will. So now it's not just MailPilot. I'm also picking up coins or money from my islands, right? And when I get to about, I think, 1,000 or 1,500 points, I go to level 2. There we go, right? And that's my voice, by the way. And now I can fire bullets.
Just because you're in level 2.
Yeah. The clouds also have animated lightning, right? No, I couldn't get it, right? So as you can see, it's quite complex compared to before. I got an extra life back, right? So these are all extra sounds that I put together with my game, right? And again, I just took it to the next level. Now you might say this is easy to do. Okay, prove it to me, right? So again, I'm not firing my bullets because I don't see my plane. Oh. And of course, if you notice how I died, and I gave myself a little bit of a spot where I respawned, it took me an extra second, right? Right, so that I did that as well. So watch, if I die, I get a bit of an explosion going on, right? And I continue to live to fight another day. I also have a file that I use for high scores, so I can keep track of my high score, right? And of course, right now it's not working. It's giving me not a number because I'm not running it from a server. I need to run the file from the server in order for me to do that. So again, I took it to the next level. I had bitmap text. I have a scoring system that has a high score. I have my plane can fire bullets. At the third level, the bullets can fire at me. The planes can fire at me. You can take this, continue to go with it, right? Now, I've only done it so that this MailPilot game would be, you know, again, I'm the professor, so I got to show you how far I could take it within the time frame that I have. It's a couple weeks, right? So it's not impossible for you to create something like this, right? It's all around. It's all around what kind of time you're going to put into it. Do I expect this from you in 2 weeks? Absolutely not. But I've given you the code for what I've done, so you can look at samples of code that's online to say, how did he do that, right? Well, maybe I did it like this. Maybe I can take an idea from what Tom is doing, not my code, just the idea, to say this is something that I can incorporate for myself. Any questions around that? So again, MailPilot, it's assignment 3, and it's going to be due in 2 weeks, right? I would urge you to start it ASAP. This is not a project you can pick up and do within the same week. It's just not. It's going to kill you for you to do that kind of stuff. You won't finish. It's worth 15% of your mark. And it's something that you're going to have to do or start off pretty soon, pretty early.